Happy Saturday, and welcome to Ramashram Satsang Weekend Workshop, where you will learn a modern satsang method for obtaining peace, light, and love in your life. My name is Shivangi, and I will be introducing the facilitator for today's event. But first, I'd like to give you a brief overview of this satsang session. If you will direct your attention to the screen, you will see the first element is satsang. Satsang is a scientific method whereby we may obtain peace, light, and love in our lives. It requires no physical skill, spiritual accomplishment, or meditation experience to begin this practice. Satsang consists of two words, sat and sang. Sat means positive energy, and sang means to be with or to be in the presence of. Therefore, the word satsang means to be in the presence of positive energy. The next element is meditation. Meditation is an important part of satsang. When we meditate, our consciousness is drawn from worldly objects and directed inward to focus on a single thought. In doing so, our minds become calm and our thoughts become pure, leading us to higher states of consciousness such as enlightenment, peace, light, and love. Inner orientation. There are two types of satsangs, inner satsang and outer satsang. An example of outer satsang would be chanting or attending pilgrimages. When we practice outer satsang, we have the potential to change our behavior, but only through the practice of inner satsang can we obtain higher states of consciousness such as enlightenment, peace, light, and love. This is the type of satsang we will learn today, where we meditate in silence. Group sessions. These weekend workshops are structured for group participation. When we meditate as a group, our focus is improved and our personal progress along our spiritual path is expedited. By regularly attending these weekend workshops, the benefits of group participation are amplified. Joy and inner happiness. All beings wish to experience joy. Joy is the eternal longing of the soul, but only through the practice of inner satsang can we obtain a joyous state. Each time we practice satsang, our inner happiness gradually increases, ultimately culminating in a state of joy that we experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The agenda for today's session consists of 3 sessions: the informative session, the practice session, and the interactive session. During the informative session, a lecture will be given about a satsang topic, our founder, or some relevant spiritual topic. During the practice session, instructions on how to meditate will be given, followed by a period of practice. During the interactive session, you will have the opportunity to ask questions or there will be a panel discussion. And now, I'd like to introduce the facilitator for today's event. He has over 40 years of satsang experience. He is the grandson of our founder, Guru Maharaj. He was born into the satsang family where he witnessed his family members obtain states of enlightenment and live lives of peace, light, and love. At an early age, he began traveling with the mission throughout India, facilitating satsangs. During that time, he witnessed the positive effects that satsang could have on mankind. Upon arriving in the United States, both he and his wife continued to facilitate satsang for local satsangis. He has led teams of satsang members in translating important satsang literature into English and has worked tirelessly to make satsang more accessible to Western and English-speaking audiences. He currently travels throughout the United States, India, and England, facilitating satsangs while maintaining his duties as a husband, a father, and an IT executive. Today, he will teach us a rare and ancient form of satsang as taught by our Guru Maharaj. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Sanjeev Kumarji.
So happy Saturday, everyone. Glad that we are here in Satsang. So today, I think I'm taking another stab at a pretty difficult, I wouldn't say it's a complex topic of detachment. We all hear about it. I think one of the things that Guru Maharaj implemented um, was how we can live a day-to-day life with more detachment than we have. So, let's watch this video and then we'll practice as usual, and then we'll discuss this topic a little more after the meditation.
Let's talk about detachment today. In India and even outside, there was a time when the thought became that if you want to spiritually become enlightened, or you really want to go in deep service to attain communion with God, or enlightenment, or really dedicate yourself to approach higher consciousness, you should completely and totally dedicate yourself to that. And the only way that you could achieve that is either you go to the Himalayas, or you go to a monastery, you go to an ashram, or you dedicate yourself to service in church. So give up your worldly duties, family life, and dedicate yourself to achieving this one goal. What Guru Maharaj said is that everyone's goal should be to achieve that state, or call it enlightenment, call it the ocean of peace, which he used to refer it to, the land of peace. We all human beings have the right, and they should achieve that state. And he said that for that reason, not everybody can leave or should leave the worldly duties and family life. He said you ought to follow a method through which you can achieve enlightenment while being in the family, while doing your regular activities. He put out a few principles which will enable your spiritual progress, or your progress towards that enlightened state. So number one, he would emphasize that you put 23 hours into doing what you're doing, your regular day-to-day life, but take out 1 hour for yourself towards the goal of achieving this higher state of consciousness and your pursuit of peace. So 1 hour is totally dedicated, and he said, don't dilute that. That should be fully dedicated, and that time is your time dedicated towards that goal. And if you can achieve that, the chances that you can spiritually grow relatively consistently, or at a decent enough pace to achieve this goal in your lifetime, would become much, much higher. So that's number one. But number two is that, what did the people who went to the monasteries or the Himalayas or in ashrams or dedicated themselves to the church, what did they do? What they did was they detached themselves from the world to achieve this goal. You have to figure out how do you achieve that goal as well, because that's probably an integral part of achieving this state. And Guru Maharaj talked about a couple of different techniques through which you can achieve that goal. And he used to call this being detached while being attached, and being attached while being detached. So it's a interesting concept, and probably not as easy to implement, but he implemented it himself, and some of the leaders in Satsang who followed did the same thing. So one of the things was that he said, so we want to achieve detachment from the world. Where does that attachment come from? And that comes from your thought or your feeling that you're attached. So you have to continue to do your duties, but get detached from that activity or from that object of attachment. Let's break that down a little bit. One of the examples he gave to achieve that state was to live as a guest rather than owner of things. To clarify that, let's say you go to a hotel. You live there as a guest. Everything you enjoy, everything is there for your comfort, but you do not own any of those things. You will not take any of that with you. When you go out, you leave everything as is. If you spoil them, you'll have to pay for it. If you steal them, you'll have to probably pay for it too. But none of the things there you should get attached to, because when you leave the hotel, you leave those things behind. So why not live in the world like that? Because you are a guest in this world. You're not going to take any of this with you. So your ownership is temporary. And if you, even for that temporary time, you think that somebody else owns it and you are just the guest. So a lot of people would say, so why would I be taking care of things if I'm detached, right? And his view was that, let's say there is a hotel manager and a hotel owner. Now, the manager doesn't own it, but he has to do all his duties. He's the caretaker of that hotel. But when he goes home, because he doesn't own, so he goes home, sleeps well, while the owner might have to think about what if this happens and what if that happens. The manager does his job, goes home and sleeps well. So if you are a caretaker or a manager, you don't own those things. You are focused on your duties, because if you don't do your duties, the owner would fire you or will be upset. If you think about yourself as a manager, you will do your duties. You will take care of things that you need to take care of as a manager rather than owner. When you're the owner, all the headaches are yours. When you're just a manager, you think about it slightly differently, and that brings in that detachment in terms of implementing it in your life. And then as Buddha said that all attachment lead to misery. So once your attachments are gone, the life sufferings and ups and downs, the upheavals, all that become history, and you live a very even keel life where you achieve that higher state and continue to live there yourself, and everybody who comes in touch with you achieves that as well.
Wow. Yeah, it is a complicated subject. So we'll talk more, but one way of detaching ourselves from what all is going on is to meditate, and that's what we'll do now. Um, you know, just even momentarily, if we connect with this transcendental energy, or forget about where we are, who we are, what we're dealing with, uh, you know, essentially those are the moments when actually we are in the present moment. So when people talk about higher awareness, it's when you are in the present moment, you're really aware of what's going on. Otherwise, uh, you know, um, you are somewhere else, not where you need to be. So let's practice. So for that, peace is inside. So as Shivangi was talking about earlier, it's inward pursuits. So inward orientation is step one. To facilitate that, couple of things. One, eyes lightly closed so the sensory input doesn't distract our mind, and still and relaxed posture so that every time your body moves, your mind moves with it. So those two things help us focus inwards. But then there is another thing when you start concentrating, your mind, as usual, just goes away somewhere else. When you realize that, you bring it back. But what do you bring it back to? So your object of concentration is this transcendental energy. So you're observing that you are in the presence of this enormously positive, uplifting, transcendental energy, which is right here, right now, and it's in form of light. And that light is entering your heart, distributing throughout your body, and you're becoming one with this light. So you're manifesting this transcendental energy, which is essentially energy that transcends this world, which is enormously uplifting and positive, and it is beyond anything, uh, you know, in the sense like as Shivangi was talking about satsang, to be with transcendental energy. And this Sat also has another characteristics. It never changes. So it's like the energy that is in its uh, form, which is enormous. The entire cosmic energy is like, so it's hard to fathom. So whatever you believe in, just think of the conscious form, and that conscious form is in the form of light, and that light is entering your heart, distributing throughout your body, and you are becoming one. You're becoming completely and totally immersed in that light. So you are becoming the light. And as we just discussed, mind wanders away, bring it back to this thought and this thought alone. So right now, uh, if you do other things with this method of concentration, you will be able to do other things even better. But for now, just focus on this uh, approach of concentrating your entire focus on this observing this transcendental energy. It's right here, right now, in form of light. The light is entering your heart, distributing throughout your body, and you are getting completely and totally immersed in this light. So we'll start with music. Music helps concentration. Then music fades away, and we go in deep silent meditation. And then we'll transition out with music again. So let's start now. A happy Saturday, everyone. I'm glad that we're here in Satsang. You know, so when we talk about detachment, I think I was talking to someone, or actually, I wrote an email about having three different paths that we can follow. So, one path is materialistic focus, materialistic success, um, and in a way that uh, spiritual focus, meditation, all those things probably are not, um, not part of that process as much. And then there is this other path where you leave the materialistic comforts, and as we were, uh, so you go and leave your normal uh, life, and uh, live a life where uh, the focus is, uh, but the focus there is to get to a higher state, right? Um, so I think the third path is where your focus is still on getting to a higher state, but you don't take that action of leaving the materialistic world or the normal regular life. And but what happens in both these paths is like our mind gets in the way, and you know in path one we could be doing things that we shouldn't be doing. In path two also, Guru Maharaj describes that you could potentially um, create a world of your own while you are in a monastery, or in the sense that the attachments that you went away from, there could be an alternate set that evolves wherever you're living, because that's natural to us. But living in a normal, doing all your duties and still progressing towards a higher state, I think that is a more, uh, I think it's a more difficult, as well as uh, it's it's something that, if you know who doesn't want peace, who doesn't want to be wise, who doesn't want love, light, and peace in their lives, right? But uh, the methods through which we can get there, um, one, we ought to understand and know about them, and then we should have the inner strength to pursue those. So I'll pause there. Any thoughts, questions, comments? Sarvinji, anything on your end today?
Namaskar, Bhaiya. Namaskar, everybody, and happy Saturday, everybody. Thank you, Puj Bhaiya. Again, it's fortunate for me to join. Yeah, you were saying everything that has to be said, you've already said. I was just reminded of Param Puja Papaji, of course, who was a university professor and demonstrated in his life how to be the way you just mentioned. He used to say, lotus flower. The lotus flower can grow in muddy waters, Kamal, and it can grow in all sorts of adverse surroundings. Yet it can be covered in mud and dirt. When the rains come, it's fresh as a daisy. It doesn't let So it lives independently and freely despite being involved. Pravritti mein nivritti and nivritti mein pravritti, he used to talk about. So I can only remember and see the example of yourself and Papaji and Parapuja Pandit Maharaj, and those examples are for us to follow. And I do, you rightly say it's not easy, to be like the manager of a complex hotel, but to surrender, I think it's an uphill path. So, one needs a guru. I think one needs to be able to follow that light, and thanks for being that light. So thank you.
So good, because Lotus, I think, is given, it's like lot of ideologies and religions, take Lotus as a symbol because of what you just said. It, comes out of the swamp, but beauty and blooms into this almost like unaffected beauty, right? So you ought to live like that, right? You may be in a swamp, but you can be as, beautiful and as um, pure. I think it also, Lotus also defines purity. So comes out and it's above, so it transcends that swamp that it lives in. So very interesting. Yeah, that's what was all described in that video. This is yeah, it's the symbolic way of depicting that. So Rich, how are you?
You're always picking on me. I'm good. I can't say anything better than what's already been said. No,
But what we were talking about, I was kind of remembering, everything that goes around in our lives,
mm,
not detached to a certain degree. I mean, naturally or otherwise, it just, you know, would drive us in a place where we don't want to be.
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we all have I guess, a natural um, settled spot that we accept things to a degree, but um, I definitely could do better at accepting more, right, and detaching from, instead of getting wound around the axle or worked up or stressed. It only just makes things worse. So, um, yeah, conceptually,
See, if we look at it at the core of it, meditation is nothing but detaching yourself from the current surroundings for a little bit, right?
yeah, there's only so much control over things that we have, right? And it's kind of that battle, inner battle, right? Um, yeah. And like you said, right, there's so much the other day, so much you get out of going through this to slough off all the stress of the day and all the craziness of our lives, to get
Yeah,
back to center,
yeah, I was remembering again, when uh, so I got so I was in a set of interviews, and when I got the feedback, one of them said he's even keel. I said, okay, it's something I must have learned through Satsang.
Yeah, that, you definitely are that. Yeah, I like I say, the concept. I'm not going to go live in the Himalayas, as you say, but certainly, um, you don't your life will quickly, um, you know, overwhelm you, right? If you can't detach. I mean, that's my tendency, is to
Right.
to do the opposite, right? Is to get over focused on things.
True.
Yeah.
True for most of us, or actually there are these phases, right? When you're like things just keep changing. That's world, and not always for better.
For sure. But better, it's all relative. How do you describe better? How do you describe what you have today? How do you look at, are you grateful for what you have? Are you never grateful?
Yeah, I think that that's another thing that meditation provides, this just reflection that, sometimes we leave that gratitude and, kindness and all those things behind. But then when you ground yourself, center yourself again, some of that actually comes back naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to make it a practice, a common habit, to do that. Keep your sanity. Yeah.
So any other thoughts, comments, questions? Paula, Barbara, Sunny, Ashita, how are you?
Namaste.
No.
I'm good.
Yeah.
How are you?
And so I'm picking on you because you were probably the youngest here, and
I am.
to have you.
I figured. Yeah, this is a very different. I feel like I'm taking all this in from a very different perspective because I'm in my 20s, and my generation is facing different challenges.
You're overwhelmed by social media and all this other nonsense we didn't have to grow up with, right, Sanjeev?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter's in her 20s too, and she constantly tells me how she's unplugging a lot from Instagram, this thing, that thing. So you need it more than even we did, I think, right, Sanjeev?
Yeah, and actually this new generation is talking more about meditation than the prior generations.
Really?
But you know, um, I think it is again, what's the goal? What's the process like? How do you develop a deep and consistent practice? Because see, when something becomes very popular, there are like these threads, and I mean, it's like, yes, music can prepare you for meditation, but just listening to music is not meditation in itself. Music is very integral, but the music actually helps. Even what I was reading was the new research is showing that your mind rests when you are concentrating on something like music. So when you play music, when you meditate, your mind is actually resting, because when you're physically resting, your mind is actually not resting. So
I always think of music as like you're a tuning fork, and you kind of hit the right resonance and you vibrate in the right way to,
and actually, I think you're touching interesting point there, because the different vibrations have a different effect on you. So there are uplifting ones and there are not so uplifting ones. So
yeah.
at the same time, yeah. All right. So anything else before we wrap up? So Shivangi, Onkar, any wrap up thought?
Bhaiya, namaste. You know, when you are at the beach and enjoying sun,
like
so like you do nothing, just your body makes vitamin D, so I am just enjoying that moment.
Yeah, it's like Rich's background is the beach, so he that vitamin D. All right. So on that note, love, light, and peace be with you. Let's continue to help each other to uplift ourselves and get to a higher state. So love, light, and peace be with you. We'll be here back in satsang soon. Namaskar.
Namaste, Bhaiya ji.